Hello.
This is Luke with Essential TV.
I'm Peter.
And I'm Ricky.
And we are here to talk about Star Wars. And all three of us are longtime Star Wars fans. Although
Some longer than others.
Some of us longer than others. And everybody's talking about Star Wars right now. So we thought, you know what? Let's go live and let's talk about Star Wars. Because there's a lot to talk about. So send us your messages, send us questions, comments, whatever as we talk.
Yeah, we want to start a conversation with you guys.
But we are on a delay, so if you send a message and we don't respond immediately, we'll try to catch it and we'll try to get back to you. And we don't see everything, so don't get angry with us. So anyway, first things first. How long until The Force Awakens?
1 week if you're going to the advanced screenings Thursday night.
Thursday night?
I mean, it's like... What started years ago was like the midnight showing, and then they kept making it earlier and earlier. Now, how many years later? It's the earliest you can see it is 7 p.m. the night before it comes out.
I have to say, my favorite innovation in movie theaters in the last 10 years has been doing away with the midnight show and just making it Thursday.
Exactly. Yeah,
totally cool.
It's so much easier.
And it's been 10 years since the last Star Wars, so it's been building. You know?
Yeah. Now, I have to ask, are we excited?
I'm very excited.
Are we nervous? Or are we a mix of excited and nervous?
Well, for me, I hate to say this, but I really wasn't that excited. I guess after the first teaser trailer and not knowing what direction that Star Wars went with Episode 7, rather than what the books kind of portrayed it as to be. So I was a little bit disappointed with that, but I'm all for with the new stuff in JJ.
That's such a big thing, though, because when Disney bought the rights to Star Wars, there was this whole extended universe. All the comic books and the novels and video games and all these things that were expanded after Return of the Jedi. And Disney just went, nope, they're gone.
Yeah.
All those stories that you read.
A lot of good stories, a lot of good characters, but I'm all up for the new stuff. It's fine as long as
you
it's
seem
good.
really depressed that all those characters are now.
I don't care. I read them as a kid, and
Well, if you enjoyed it,
it's all good. For me,
I think some people, it's like, well, it's like my life was a lie. Like everything I know is gone now. You just erased it from existence. But
as a production standpoint, though, it seems like it's easier for them to control.
Oh, it makes perfect sense because think about how many decades of novels and extended continuity there would be
you have to catch people who haven't read those up.
How does someone writing a movie keep up with all that? It's impossible for any one person to read all of that. And we see Brent Madison 1. Can't wait for Thursday. So,
Same.
Brent, are you more excited or nervous? Because or are you not nervous at all? Are you confident? Because that's my thing. It's like I think I'm more nervous than excited because we've been burned before.
See, I was a little young for that
the prequels.
The prequels they came out when I was 6 or something. So I saw them in theaters. I was blown away. I loved in Episode 2 seeing Yoda jump around fighting Count Dooku. I lost it. I thought that was the coolest moment, and then years later, I'm maturing, and I'm like, wait a second, these movies are terrible.
Good.
Yeah,
well, the whole thing about it, in my opinion, is the fact that who's the most powerful right now? Sidious was at the top of the chain.
I think it's Luke.
But yeah, Luke is. But who's the is it going to be this guy Kylo Ren? Is it going to be Snoke? I don't know. These guys, the Sith are dead. So who is the real?
That's what I'm excited about to find out. Is Kylo Ren just going to be this? He's going to be like the Darth Maul. He's just this one villain, and then he dies, and then we find out that there's something else going on, or is he going to be in the next 2 movies after this?
Because Episode 3, you had so many Jedi, so many
Oh yeah,
a few different Sith
the
characters.
Prequels in general, they just were jam-packed full of characters, but in the end, who really amounted to anything?
It's true.
It's the ones that already did, like Yoda, right? Like Obi-Wan. And I guess you could say Mace Windu was pretty important and didn't stick around. But other than that, I don't think that the prequels really contributed much of anything to Star Wars, really. I mean, if anything, not to beat a dead horse, but I think that they did more damage to Star Wars than anything because what do we walk away with from the prequels? Now we know way too much about Darth Vader as a kid.
It ruined Darth Vader, in my opinion.
And now we have midi-chlorians, and we know the Force is from little organisms. Like, there's just all kinds of
They
dumbness.
shouldn't even mention midichlorians.
I don't think they will. I think that in J.J. Abrams' hands, I think he's one of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel confident. I'm with you, Brent, in that.
And hello, Cool Reet. Welcome.
Hello, Cool Reet. Is that your Jedi name? I feel like with J.J. Abrams, I'm confident that he is coming at it from our perspective, and that he liked the original trilogy, and he knows what was fun about that for fans, and he's going back to practical effects because that's what really made it all feel real, right? Whenever they started to insert all these Roger Rabbit-esque cartoon characters, because George Lucas is like, that's the future. It's you can't tell the difference between this giant cartoon and real life in my head. The magic was lost because there was no way to believe that this galaxy far, far away actually existed. So I'm confident that JJ will bring back some of those things that made the original trilogy special. And I think he's with us.
Brent is upset about the special 3D glasses that are only at one cinema chain. We had the same thing with like Age of Ultron, right? They had those special 3D glasses that were impossible to get.
What's so special about it?
They just got like designs on them.
It's more 3D.
It's collector stuff.
Oh, I gotcha.
They have smell-o-vision. Yeah, I don't know. That's another thing. There's like all the merchandising that goes on around this. And so I just want a real quick blast from the past, right? Because we're seeing like people lining up for the new Star Wars toys and getting so excited about this BB-8 robot, and it's like, you haven't met BB-8 yet.
I fell for it. I'm excited for BB-8.
But let's have a blast from the past. Remember when we were excited about this? There's my Jar Jar slippers that I assure you I still wear every night because that guy is hilarious.
You bought them in an adult size?
That's amazing.
I would imagine they made them in adult size because they make everything. This is something that I remember vividly. The Jedi rat tail. This isn't this child's real hair. They actually sold these because after episode 1, every Jedi had this terrible hairstyle, and you could get these little hair clip-ons to make you feel like you had the Force. And by the Force, I mean a bunch of midi-chlorians living inside your bloodstream. And what could be more appetizing than a cool, refreshing Mountain Dew with this lovable character's face on it? And, I mean, this is probably the most infamous piece of merchandise, the Jar Jar lollipop.
That looks awful.
It's.
Why would you want to lick his tongue?
Let me ask you this:
gross.
Which is more appetizing?
The soda is barely more, which is less appetizing.
But on Jar Jar in the prequels, this extends way back to the original trilogy. This is the infamous C-3PO tape dispenser.
Oddly placed tape dispenser.
Nothing awkward about that.
Well, he's a robot.
So Star Wars has historically been a merchandising machine, and I'm sure that is a huge part of why Disney bought this, because they realize they can slap Star Wars on anything.
Yeah.
And they have been doing that. But I'm just saying, as someone who, pre-Episode 1, went out and bought every single action figure to Episode 1 without knowing any of these characters, just knowing that it was Star Wars, those action figures are worthless. They're still mint in packaging, so if anyone wants them, I have every Star Wars Episode 1 initial action figure, but I don't want them. And I doubt you do either.
Playing off your action figure stuff, in an interview, Adam Driver, who's the actor playing Kylo Ren, even though we don't know Kylo Ren's identity because he's wearing that mask. So Adam Driver could just be like saying it in place when really like there's someone else behind that mask. But in an interview, he was curious of how they would make action figures for Kylo Ren. He hinted at something like what would his like face be like or something. Like we don't know if he's
Well,
he
they
obviously
just have
knows
to make
something.
it so his mask doesn't come
No,
off.
he wasn't implying the face. He meant like there's underneath the mask. Like how would they make that like I don't know, something like if it was human or maybe his face is scarred. I don't know. But there's one scene in the trailer where it's Jason Boyega with his lightsaber, and then Kylo Ren's back is to the camera, and he has his helmet off, and you can see he's got like poofy Adam Driver hair. So then that kind of like I don't know.
But here's the
I'm
thing.
just really curious who Kylo Ren is.
I've seen the trailers, and they look good. They look exciting. They look fun. They look like Star Wars. But like Kylo Ren and BB-8 and like all these names, they mean nothing to me until I see the movie.
Yeah, that's true. I read up a little bit on Kylo Ren.
Yeah, you got some good
of
theories.
who he is. So apparently, 30 years after the Battle of Endor, the new empire is called like the First Order, and the head of it, the supreme leader, is a guy named Snoke, and who's played by
Andy Serkis.
Yep.
Which is exciting.
Yeah, Andy Serkis is a great actor. He was Gollum in Lord of the Rings, Caesar in Planet of the Apes. He does a lot.
He's the biggest actor that nobody would ever
Exactly.
recognize.
He's the master
You've
of
never
motion
seen
capture.
his face.
But in this, he is playing himself. He's not motion capture.
Well, he's not playing Andy Serkis, but he's playing.
He's
with
this guy
You'll see
Snoke,
his face.
who isn't a Sith apparently, but he knows the ways of the dark side, and he kind of seduced Kylo Ren, who was part of the Knights of Ren, who served the First Order, and he taught him the ways of the Force. The dark
by the
side.
way,
And all of this will be presumably revealed in.
Yeah,
the
this is
Force
what I
Awakens.
read on Star Wars Wikipedia.
oh wait, last night Damien Dark with the Force joke.
Yeah.
That was okay. We'll get to
Everyone's in the Star Wars spirit. This is not the series you're looking for. But one thing that always bugged me about Star Wars, even the original trilogy, is they introduced the concept that there's always a Sith and a Master, so there's only ever two bad guys, really.
Yeah.
And that always kind of bugged me because I realized the bad guys, particularly Darth Vader in the original trilogy, they're so cool. But you're only ever going to have...
That's not a good business
It's not
model.
true, though. I mean,
Well, that's the thing.
in KOTOR, in Knights of the Old Republic, it wasn't like that. There was just a lot of Sith and one main Sith leader.
Was that when did that take place?
1,000 years before.
So that's way back.
Okay, so then they probably like something. There's one very egotistical Sith who's
That
like,
set a
no,
new quota.
I'm in charge, and this is my right hand man. Everyone else
And
is out of
also,
the
like, way ahead of the game in
Yeah.
Star Wars Legacy comic, there's a lot of Sith, too.
And to Matt Shaft 72, we did not get a pre-release viewing. We are in the same boat as you, just speculating.
Yeah, we're just fans.
I did, and Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. And HG Science Nerd, not too excited about it. Are you not excited because? Tell us why you're not excited. I don't want to put any ideas in your head. I'd like to know why you're not excited. Because there's a lot of, I don't know. I think there's a lot of hurt feelings around Star Wars, and I have to say, mostly mine. Because I was a huge Star Wars fan between like the Dark Ages, right? After Return of the Jedi and before the special editions when nobody was talking about Star Wars. I remember I have all the original action figures that I went to every antique shop and flea market.
You were
and
the
like,
Eric
garage.
Foreman from that 70s show.
Yeah, like I collected all these figures and I don't have any of them in the packaging because I had to buy them all used. I put an ad in the newspaper saying, does anyone have Star Wars toys that they want to sell? And I got, like, someone gave me the Death Star, like, just gave it to me. And I have, in the Millennium Falcon, that's how I got that. Somebody gave it to me because this stuff was just junk at the time. Nobody cared about Star Wars, except for me. And I remember the first official Star Wars merchandise that came out in, like, the 90s was like little bendable rubber action figures. They were like the rubber ones with the metal wires inside of them. They're terrible toys. But I was so excited because it was something I saw in a store that said Star
like a
Wars on
Gumby
it.
something?
Yeah, it was like Gumby. I can't believe you know Gumby.
Not Gumby.
I mean, they re-released them that time in like right before the prequels came out, but then they had added scenes and they switched the.
Well, they brought it back, and now Star Wars will never ever die because Disney will make sure that it doesn't. They've
I just
invested
hope that
$4 billion in making sure that.
I want some one-offs. I want some one-off movies.
They're
like,
doing that.
Like Darth Maul Shadowhunter. That was a great book about Darth Maul and everything that happened right before Episode 1, which is really informative. Tells you kind of how Palpatine, secretly manipulated and had this whole plan out. And it was a really good book, and I always thought it'd be a really cool movie, but, obviously Lucas wouldn't do it.
But I think that I think is the most exciting thing about the whole Disney plan for me is that now there is this huge universe, and we know from the extended universe, all the books and everything, there's so much potential, and now we get to see these spin-offs, these smaller stories that are not about Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and like big characters. We might get to see, like I was just telling you earlier about, I'm excited about the one about the Bothan spies. Several Bothan spies gave their lives to bring you the Death Star plans, right? It's like a throwaway line in A New Hope. And if you were a fan, like in that dark age period between the original trilogy and the special editions, you're thinking, your imagination is going, because there's no other Star Wars. Like, what's their story? Because that's pretty significant, right? That's quite a mission.
Does that mean we're getting those Nerf Herder movie too then? I
think we'll probably get a scruffy Nerf Herder action figure.
Okay.
If they can make a movie around it, I'm sure they will. Hello to our friends from Moscow. I'm not sure when you get the movie. I hope that it's a global release, but I'm not sure.
I think seems like. I mean, if the Avengers movie, which is also owned by Disney, do global
Disney's
releases.
Good about global stuff, typically. And someone, I just want to point out, somebody, Matt Schaff 72, is anyone concerned that Darth Vader was the product of an immaculate conception? I don't think there was anything immaculate about the prequel trilogies. He was the product of midi-chlorians. And I don't know what's more disturbing, the idea of him being a product of immaculate conception, or him being the product of midi-chlorians, or that midi-chlorians are a product of George Lucas. Yes.
I hated what they did with Anakin Skywalker. It was terrible. Such a powerful individual with the Force, but such a weak individual with everything else.
He's a little B-word.
He definitely takes a little of the thunder out of Darth Vader after you've watched the originals. I can't imagine what it's like for a fan to start with the prequels and like go in order chronologically. I just can't
however, that was not me.
You went with the originals first?
I was with the originals, and I vividly remember the prequels coming out and knowing like how it turns out. Like, I knew who Anakin Skywalker was. I knew that he is Darth Vader. So like I was just a little bit.
Well, and I'm kind of in the same boat, because from my age group, I basically, like, the original trilogy was all out. So it's not like it was a huge surprise whenever in Empire Strikes Back, when Darth Vader reveals that he's Luke Skywalker's father. I knew that just because the movies were not new.
No, yeah.
I didn't see them in the theaters. But I don't know. I have to think that my enthusiasm for Star Wars would have been quite different if I'd started with the prequels. But maybe not with these movies. That's another thing. We have a whole new group of a whole new generation that's going to be watching The Force Awakens. It's going to be their first Star Wars movie.
And what's funny about this one is that 20th Century Fox isn't, it's not them anymore. It's Disney. So the infamous dum-dum, dum-dum, dum-dum,
oh yeah,
it's not that.
Now we're just gonna get
like Disney.
We're gonna get the Disney.
That's part of Star Wars. Everybody would like cheer in the theater when that came up.
That is kind of part of the
It's a little strange,
I don't know. I think it's in good hands. There's always been this synergy between Disney and Star Wars, because they had the Star Tours ride. And like I said, for me being in the dark ages in the 90s with nothing Star Wars, I knew, well, there's a Star Tours ride in Disney. And that's where, that's where you go to be in this galaxy far, far away. And it was exciting. And so I always thought it was a natural home for Disney to acquire Star Wars. And I just feel like it's in good hands. I feel like J.J. Abrams is the right guy to be in charge of this, to steer the ship, but he's also not perfect. I'm not a fan of what he did with Star Trek.
I think he's aware of his mistakes with Star Trek.
Didn't he do Cloverfield?
He did I liked Cloverfield.
Yeah, it was okay. It was a little strange.
I thought Super 8 was terrible.
Yeah, I didn't like Super 8.
I think JJ is very hit or miss, but I know that he is a colossal Star Wars nerd. And because of that, I think that, I mean, how does, if one of us were handed the keys to Star Wars, aren't you going to treat it with the greatest amount of respect?
Of course.
If you are that fan.
That's what I mean, with all these superhero comic book movies coming out, it's pretty obvious with like the success and the failures that you gotta treat it as a fan would. You have to be true to
you have to
the original
serve the
content.
fans, but
you also gotta give them something they haven't seen.
But then, like with the prequels, sorry, it's so easy to beat up on the prequels. George Lucas was trying to give fans little things that they like. The story was not one of those things. He did whatever he wanted with the story. But it's like, oh, well, here's a scene where Yoda and Chewbacca are chilling because apparently they're friends.
Yeah.
Like, no, they're not. That's stupid. How big is this galaxy? Because apparently it's a very small world. Like, that's kind of fan service that does not work. It's beyond our suspension of disbelief, and it's disrespectful to
There's
fans.
a deleted scene with Greedo too, right? Little baby Greedo.
Oh, I don't know. I think so.
On
in episode 1.
Yeah, like right before the pod races.
Yeah,
And
it wasn't like Chewbacca was talking to Han about Yoda and his days hanging out with him
No,
during
and
the
it's
Clone Wars.
stupid. And then, and Anakin built C-3PO. Like, okay, Anakin Skywalker, who becomes Darth Vader, happened to be the one that built C-3PO. Like, sure, George, whatever. Like, you really want to bring your droids back in because you know that they sell action figures. Which goes back to Mr. Ron Pruitt's point, is the show catering to Disney merchandising needs? Yes. Yes. This business is not about the movies. This business is about the merchandise. George Lucas became a billionaire because when he made the original Star Wars, nobody had any faith in it. It's 1977. He has this crazy concept. He was a hot director off of American Graffiti, and he talked Fox into greenlighting this movie. And he said, "I'll take a smaller fee for directing if I get to retain the merchandising rights," which he did. And those merchandising rights, that Christmas was the Christmas of Star Wars.
Yep.
And he made so much money from the merchandising that he didn't need any studio to do a movie ever again.
It seemed like every movie too that had a kid in it, in there, like, you know, a scene in their room had a Star Wars toy. You know,
Yeah.
it was just
Well, of
that
course,
was it.
it
Every kid growing up in the '80s had some Star Wars.
The 80s. And then just this one in the 90s.
Yeah.
I was born in the 80s, but too young to go to the movies theater and see these movies. I did watch the Ewok cartoons.
I did too. I didn't like those either. Remember that Ewok movie?
Yeah.
What a terrible movie.
Well, there were
I
two-
wasn't aware of any of this.
Yeah, because you were too young, man. See, there wasn't that much entertainment for us kids growing up as when you were.
But it
you know?
filled the dark ages, right? Because I used to see those old Ewok movies on like the Disney Channel at random hours, and that's all we got from Star Wars for a while, and that will never happen again.
I just remember like, oh, Star Wars is on, and you'd see like Endor, and then you'd see like that little kid with the curly blonde
Right.
hair, and you're like, this movie sucks.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know.
I want to end it with a question.
Please do.
Where do you think Luke Skywalker is? Like,
I don't know how
is he going like old Ben Kenobi right now? He's isolated
I don't
somewhere?
know. Apparently, he was. I heard a rumor that he's being held captive. But how do you hold captive the most powerful Jedi that's around?
Well, he's the most powerful Jedi because he's the only Jedi.
That's what I mean.
So that doesn't mean Luke Skywalker's a good Jedi or a
He's
powerful
not.
Jedi.
Then that's like I kind of want to like point out my list when you're done.
And I think after
We don't know why he's hiding.
Yeah.
To answer your
after
your
Return of
question.
the Jedi, I don't know, he just went. I could see him going like really soft after
Well, I
that
think
thing with Vader.
there's always been this.
maybe he's in carbonite.
There's always been this theory that Luke Skywalker went to the dark side,
Yeah,
and maybe he did. We
he
don't
did
know.
in the books.
Are we gonna get a Billy D cameo?
I hope so. Billy D. Williams,
He really let himself go though.
Lando Calrissian. Well, listen, most of these actors let
Except for
themselves go.
He
Except
did
for,
Clone Wars.
Harrison Ford has stayed
Harrison
consistently
Ford,
working.
yeah.
Harrison Ford has not had the luxury of being able to let himself go.
Mark Hamill did.
Everyone else did, and they brought themselves back for this movie. Billy D. Williams, I hope we see him because there's never too much Lando Calrissian.
Gotta love Lando.
And I guess the last we saw him, he was a general, right? So I hope that he's like in charge of a whole galaxy somewhere.
Yeah.
Because
Still wearing Han's clothes.
That would be the hippest galaxy in the universe.
Well, hello.
All right.
He was such a creeper again with Leia.
Lando? Oh,
Yeah.
totally. But he didn't know that Han and, whatever.
I remember I used to play Lego Star Wars video game, and when you were Lando, if you went up to Leia and like if you hit like the punch button, instead he would like take her hand and like kiss it.
That's amazing.
That's really cool.
All right. There was one last message that I missed.
The lack of plot is shy. I'm
Ambivalent.
ambivalent. Big word. You beat me.
Yeah, and I've watched the previews myself. I've seen all the commercials.
Character dies. Yeah, Harrison Ford has wanted Han to die since he started
It
Star
might have.
Wars.
Well, Chewbacca dies in the books.
Dude,
Not in this
The books,
book,
it doesn't matter. The
they're
books
not
don't exist
following
in
But
it.
like, I
know?
can't even.
Probably,
I can't
probably a
process that.
stormtrooper. Probably a stormtrooper probably dies. I would not be surprised if Harrison Ford stipulated that this is his one and only new Star Wars movie. You know,
I wouldn't be surprised either if they're done after this. You know, I really wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised.
I think I would like,
well, they had to bring the original trio back, or I
Yeah.
guess you could say 4 with Chewbacca.
or else people are just gonna be like,
You can't pick
what's-
up where Return of the Jedi basically left off
Yeah.
without them, but you know, I think they're gonna.
Considering
This is pushing them aside
Yeah.
and bringing in the new generation.
Considering Oscar Isaac's character is a pilot, and then you got Jason Boyega, who's like, he's got the lightsaber, and then Daisy Ridley is, it's kind of like mirroring the original, which is what George Lucas did before. But what if Han Solo dies and Chewie still needs someone to hang out with? He can hang out with the other pilot, Oscar
well,
Isaac.
too bad Yoda's dead, because Chewbacca and Yoda are like best
They were
friends.
BFFs, dude. He would,
Yeah.
where do you think Yoda got the Bina backpack idea?
Yeah. If Han Solo died,
He's right here.
we confess his everlasting love to Chewie with his last breath. Yes. The answer is yes.
Let's leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you very much. You're all going to go see Star. You
At
will
least-
see Star Wars.
At
The
least
Force
a week from
Awakens.
today.
I will catch a matinee the next day. Who am I kidding? I'll go that night.
I'm going to find a way to go.
I'm the
I'm
only
not
one
waiting.
who
My,
got-
my wife wants to watch it, and it's just going to be like another week before I see it. So
I'm
I'm
the
gonna
only
have
one
to
who
like,
got tickets like when they came out.
I'm gonna have to go during my work hours and like just go low key.
They'll understand.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Everyone, be like this. Cross your fingers. JJ, we're looking at you.
I believe it'll be good. It'll be
I
good.
believe so too.
May the Force be with you, JJ. You're our only hope.
Scruffy nerf herder.
Who you calling scruffy looking?